What if Meghan Markle never had children? No, really. What if the royal fairy tale we were sold was a lie from the very start? What if Archie Harrison Mountbatten-Windsor, the long-awaited royal baby whose name was shouted from the palace rooftops, never actually lived under Meghan's roof? What if the adorable family photos, the emotional interviews, the Netflix documentaries were all smoke and mirrors? And what if Lady Colin Campbell, a woman long dismissed by the media as eccentric, outrageous, even laughable, was the only one willing to say what others were too afraid to? Because she said it, out loud, on camera, with zero hesitation. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Archie lives in the UK with his real mom, she declared, her voice calm, but deliberate. And Meghan Markle, she has no kids. Just like that, the internet erupted. Blogs exploded. Twitter melted down. YouTubers, journalists, royal watchers, everyone, everywhere, wanted to know, had Lady C lost her mind? Or had she just detonated the biggest royal scandal since Wallace Simpson? Because let's be honest, this wasn't some TikTok theory whispered into the void by a faceless profile. This came from Lady C, a woman who's written royal biographies, who's dined with aristocrats, who has one foot firmly planted inside the gilded gates of Britain's most secretive institution. And she wasn't speculating. She was stating it as fact. Which begs the question, why now? Why is this revelation surfacing just as Harry and Meghan are scrambling to rebuild their brand in Hollywood, facing mounting pressure over Archewell's finances, and quietly disappearing from Netflix's spotlight? Why is this bombshell being dropped when they can least afford it? And if it is true, if Meghan doesn't have children, what else has she faked? Think about it. From the beginning, Meghan's motherhood journey has been filled with oddities. A pregnancy that seemed to appear overnight. A baby bump that looked flexible. Photos that felt overly staged. A birth announcement that contradicted itself. A birth certificate that was edited. Children who were seldom seen, barely heard, and never photographed in real time. Remember when Kate Middleton stood outside the Lindo wing just hours after giving birth, glowing, proud, holding Prince Louis in her arms while the world applauded? Now compare that to Meghan. No hospital steps, no real-time press, just a blurry photo of baby feet, a murky timeline, and a press release that read more like a legal document than a royal celebration. Does that sound like transparency to you? Or damage control? And then came the photos, or rather, the lack of them. Year after year, while the public begged for a single clear image of Archie or Lilibet, Meghan and Harry fed the world artfully obscured silhouettes. A back turned here, a shadowed face there, blurry Christmas cards, private christenings, birthday portraits with heavy filters and questionable metadata, as if they were hiding something, or someone, or perhaps nothing at all. Because here's the twist. What if there never were any children to hide? What if the children we thought existed were part of a carefully constructed narrative, designed to shield, distract, or even manipulate public perception? And more importantly, what if Meghan wasn't the architect of the lie, but the face of it? What kind of machinery would need to be in place to pull off such a deception? What kind of silence would have to be bought? What kind of allies, inside and outside the palace, would be necessary to maintain that illusion? Because here's the uncomfortable truth. If Lady C is right, this is no longer just a tabloid scandal. It's a constitutional question, a matter of royal succession, a moral dilemma, and potentially a criminal one. The question isn't just whether Meghan has children. The question is, who knew she didn't? And how far were they willing to go to protect that secret? But before we can unpack what Lady C revealed, we need to understand who she is, and why her words carry more weight than the press wants you to believe. Born into aristocracy, raised among dukes and duchesses, married into British nobility, Lady Colin Campbell may appear eccentric, but she's no outsider. Her books on Princess Diana and the Queen Mother were international bestsellers. Her personal archives include letters from palace insiders. Her phone rings with whispers the tabloids would kill to hear. She doesn't gossip. She warns. And more often than not, she's proven right. So when she said that Archie wasn't living in Montecito, that he was living in the UK with his mother, people listened. Even the ones who laughed nervously. Even the ones who dismissed it as impossible. Because deep down, it confirmed a feeling many had been harboring for years. That something didn't quite add up. That behind Meghan's polished smile and Harry's performative indignation, a darker truth was hiding in plain sight. And here's where it gets really wild. According to insiders, Meghan panicked when Lady C's comments went viral. Not just concerned, not just annoyed, panicked. Her team scrambled to get the video taken down. Her lawyers drafted cease and desist letters overnight. Her PR machine went into overdrive, scheduling interviews, releasing pre-approved photos, and rallying friendly outlets to discredit Lady C as a troubled old woman. But the damage was done, because now the question was out there. Public. Uncontainable. If Meghan has no kids, where is Archie? And more importantly, who is his real mother? A question that leads us into a labyrinth of deception, desperation, and power. A story that winds through palace corridors, Hollywood mansions, legal loopholes, and secret bank accounts. A story that challenges everything we thought we knew about motherhood, fame, and royalty. And before this video is over, you'll hear from anonymous staffers, legal experts, investigative journalists, leaked memos, edited documents, unreleased footage, and you'll see how a simple question, where is Archie, could undo an empire. Because when the foundation of your public image is based on being a devoted mother, what happens when that foundation cracks? Ask yourself this. Would Meghan Markle really risk her entire legacy on a lie this massive? Or is she, just maybe, a pawn in something far bigger? A royal arrangement? A PR agreement? A contractual illusion? The answer may be buried deep in the Windsor vaults. Or it may be hidden in plain sight, in the tiny details we all overlooked. The strange timelines, the blurry photos, the recycled footage, the forced smiles, the broken friendships. Because as you'll see in the chapters ahead, Meghan Markle's motherhood may be the most fragile illusion ever constructed by the royal family, and the cracks are finally starting to show. But if you think Lady C's claim was the peak of the scandal, buckle up. Because what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. Archie lives in the UK with his mother. Meghan Markle has no kids. Those 12 words shattered the internet like a sledgehammer through glass. Lady Colin Campbell didn't whisper them. She didn't hedge. She didn't stutter. She said them clearly, casually, with that signature upper-crust British elegance, as if she were commenting on the weather or a neighbor's bad gardening habits. But the impact? Immediate. Nuclear. Because in the span of a single sentence, she didn't just suggest that Meghan Markle might not be telling the full truth. She obliterated Meghan's most sacred public role, motherhood. So, let's ask the obvious. Why would a woman of Lady C's stature, wealth, and reputation take that kind of risk? Why would she make such a jaw-dropping claim on camera, knowing the legal firestorm it would unleash? More importantly, why did so many people believe her? Let's rewind the moment. It happened during a live-streamed Q&A on her YouTube channel, a place where she's gained a loyal following by sharing unfiltered royal gossip, aristocratic analysis, and yes, the occasional controversial opinion. Her audience was midway through questions about the royal family's upcoming holiday plans when someone casually asked about Meghan and Harry's children. Lady C sipped her tea. She paused. Then she leaned forward. And without even blinking, she said it. You must understand something. Archie does not live with Meghan. He lives in the United Kingdom, with his real mother. Meghan Markle has no children. Not in the way you think. The chat froze. Comments exploded. Some viewers thought it was a slip of the tongue. Others thought it was satire. But her face didn't flinch. She meant every word. What followed was a whirlwind. Clips of the statement circulated within minutes. TikToks were made. Twitter hashtags trended. Royal commentators sat in stunned silence. Even critics of Meghan, who were used to tabloid drama and headline scandals, weren't prepared for this. This wasn't a fashion faux pas. This wasn't Meghan snubbed the Queen. This was foundational, existential. It wasn't about who Meghan was anymore. It was about who she never was. And the timing? Impeccable. Lady C's video dropped just days after the Archwell Foundation's tax returns were made public, revealing plummeting donations, suspicious accounting gaps, and rumblings of an internal investigation. Meghan had just wrapped an awkward red carpet appearance at a film gala where she dodged questions and refused to speak to the press. The narrative was slipping. And then, boom. A single aristocrat with a YouTube login torpedoed what little goodwill remained. But here's what's fascinating. Within hours of the video going viral, Meghan's legal team sprang into action. According to two independent media contacts, one in the UK, one in Los Angeles, letters were dispatched within the day. Demands to retract, threats of defamation lawsuits, quiet calls to Google to evaluate whether Lady C's video violated community guidelines. But the video remained online, untouched, unedited, unapologetic. And Lady C? She didn't back down. In fact, she doubled down. In her next livestream, she clarified, "If Meghan would like to sue me, she is more than welcome to. I would delight in cross-examining her in court, but I suspect she won't, because discovery works both ways." Chills. Now ask yourself this. If Lady C were lying, if she were fabricating something so dangerous, so scandalous, wouldn't Meghan's legal team have immediately launched a defamation suit? Because Meghan has sued before. She sued the Mail on Sunday over a private letter. She's threatened bloggers. She's gone after tabloids for less. So why not Lady C? Why this strategic silence? Could it be that Lady C's claim hit too close to a truth that Meghan can't afford to defend in court? Or worse, that going to court would unlock records, emails, or witnesses that could unravel the whole illusion? Now let's get even more specific. What exactly does Lady C mean when she says Meghan has no children? Is she implying surrogacy? Falsified documents? Is Archie not biologically hers? Or is he not legally hers? The royal family is no stranger to complicated parentage. Remember the rumors about Prince Harry's real father? The whispers about Diana's secret daughter? The conspiracy theories about Queen Elizabeth's hidden cousins? But this is different. Because Archie and Lilibet aren't tabloid distractions. They're heirs. They're part of the royal line. They're written into history. They're the face of Meghan and Harry's entire brand. Their Netflix deal centered around their family narrative. Their Spotify deal featured stories about motherhood and bedtime routines. Meghan's entire identity, the relatable, maternal, feminist Duchess, hinges on her role as a mother. Remove that, and what's left? A Hollywood actress with a history of strategic reinventions, high-profile relationships, and carefully managed optics. No kids, no Duchess title, no royal income. Just Meghan. Now let's be fair. There is a possibility that Lady C was speaking metaphorically, or that she used the word mother in a more legalistic way. Perhaps she was alluding to a surrogate agreement, or suggesting that Meghan isn't the biological mother. But if that were the case, why wouldn't Meghan just clarify? Why not issue a simple statement? Archie and Lilibet are my children. Period. Instead, we got silence. Stone-cold silence. And silence, especially in PR, is rarely neutral. It's strategic. So let's consider what may be driving Meghan's reaction behind the scenes. Maybe she's terrified. Maybe she knows that the moment she engages, she opens the floodgates. Court depositions, media probes, tabloid scrutiny, DNA rumors, staff testimonies. And the last thing she wants is for the world to start digging into timelines, documents, and backroom hospital arrangements. Or maybe she's banking on something else. The disbelief factor. Because let's be honest, for most people, the idea that a woman could fake motherhood on a global stage sounds insane. Like something out of a psychological thriller, which makes it perfect if you want people to dismiss it. The bigger the lie, the harder it is to accept. And the easier it becomes to label the truth-tellers as conspiracy theorists. Lady C knew that. She knows that. Which is why her calm delivery made the statement even more unsettling. She wasn't shouting. She wasn't ranting. She was simply stating a fact. But who else has said the same thing? Who else, quietly, over the years, has suggested that Meghan's maternal claims don't hold water? We'll get to that. Because this isn't a solo accusation. There's a pattern. A disturbing series of events, inconsistencies, and suppressed whispers that all point in one direction. Something is very wrong with the story of Archie's birth. And it started long before Lady C ever uploaded that video. It started on May 6, 2019, when the palace made an announcement that didn't match the facts. When media outlets were told Meghan had gone into labor when she had already given birth hours earlier. It started with a hospital that was never photographed, a delivery doctor who was never named, a birth certificate that was modified, a christening that was private, a press corps that was barred, a photo op that showed a newborn, already smiling. And every time someone asked a question, the response was always the same. You're being invasive. You're attacking a mother. You're racist. But truth isn't racist. Facts aren't invasive. And motherhood, real motherhood, doesn't need to be protected by PR spin and legal threats. Which brings us back to the public reaction. Because once Lady C's statement went viral, something surprising happened. People didn't just react. They started remembering. They recalled the fake baby bump debates. The way it shifted, bent, and collapsed on camera. They remembered the moon bump theory. The clumsy disguises. The time Meghan bent down and her stomach folded unnaturally. The sudden size changes between events. And suddenly, what once sounded absurd didn't anymore. What once felt like a fringe theory started looking like a puzzle with missing pieces. Pieces that Lady C just slapped on the table in front of everyone. So here's the question for you, the viewer. Do you believe her? Do you believe that Meghan Markle, the self-proclaimed advocate for mothers, mental health, and female empowerment, has been pretending to have children she doesn't biologically or legally possess? And if so, why? What does she gain? What does she avoid? And most hauntingly, who helped her do it? Because if this deception is real, she didn't do it alone. No one pulls off a global motherhood illusion by themselves. There would have been staff, doctors, lawyers, PR firms, maybe even royals. People who looked the other way. People who were paid to stay quiet. People who stood to lose everything if the truth came out. And now, the truth is clawing its way to the surface. One YouTube video, one statement, one ripple, that's turning into a tidal wave. But here's where things start to get even darker. Because the moment Lady C made that claim, people started digging into the timeline of Archie's birth. And what they found wasn't just suspicious. It was impossible. How do you hide a child in plain sight? Simple. You control the clock. Because when it comes to deception, timing isn't just everything. It's the only thing. And when it comes to Meghan Markle and the curious case of Archie Harrison Mountbatten-Windsor, the timeline doesn't just raise eyebrows. It tears them off. Let's break it down. May 6, 2019. That was the official date the world was told Meghan had gone into labor. Media outlets scrambled. Headlines lit up. The Duchess is in labor, they screamed. Only she wasn't. Because just hours later, a second announcement hit the wires. Archie had already been born at 5:26 a.m. Let that sink in. The palace told the world Meghan had just gone into labor, when in reality, the baby had been delivered more than 8 hours earlier. So why lie? Why announce a labor that was already over? Was it a communication error? An honest mistake? Or was it something much more deliberate? And what were they trying to hide? Because if the birth already happened, and they knew it, why deceive the press? Why manipulate the narrative? Especially when every second of a royal baby's arrival is typically documented down to the minute. Remember when Prince William and Kate had their children? The press camped outside the hospital for days. The palace issued moment-by-moment updates. And within hours of each birth, the couple proudly stood on the steps of the Lindo wing, baby in arms, smiling for the cameras. But with Meghan, no hospital steps, no moment of public transparency, no live press updates, just a sterile, after-the-fact announcement wrapped in confusion. Let's look closer. Initially, the palace refused to say where Meghan gave birth. It wasn't until her name appeared on Archie's birth certificate that it was revealed, Portland Hospital in London. But even that was weird, because just weeks earlier, it had been widely reported that Meghan planned to deliver at Frogmore Cottage in Windsor, under the care of a midwife, away from prying eyes. A private birth at home. That's what her PR had carefully planted across media outlets. So why the sudden shift? Why was a woman so obsessed with privacy, so determined to do things her own way, suddenly wheeled into a high-profile, luxury private hospital in central London? Did she actually give birth there? Or was the Portland Hospital name a legal convenience? And why didn't the hospital ever confirm the birth? Here's the thing. Portland is a private facility. They're not obligated to speak to the press. But their silence was deafening. No congratulatory statement. No smiling nurses. No named doctors. No plaque on the wall, like they did for other famous births. Just nothing. And that's not normal. Especially not for a royal. But let's stay with that May 6th date. Archie was reportedly born at 5:26 a.m. But Meghan and Harry didn't appear in public with him until 2 days later, on May 8th, during a short, highly controlled press call inside Windsor Castle. The footage shows them smiling. Meghan cradling what appears to be a swaddled infant. Harry beaming with pride. A brief appearance. No questions allowed. No open access. Just a few scripted lines, and they were gone. But here's the kicker. Multiple people noticed something strange about the baby Meghan was holding. He seemed older, more alert than a 2-day-old newborn, more physically developed. Some even claimed the baby's head control was far beyond what would be expected at 48 hours old. His skin tone, his hair, the way his blanket was wrapped, it didn't look organic. It looked staged. And then there was the blanket itself. Heavy, thick, layered. No hands visible. No movement. Not a single peep. As if the child wasn't real. As if it was all for show. Now, could that just be paranoia? Possibly. But then came the next oddity. The official birth certificate was released 3 weeks after the birth. 3 weeks. Why the delay? Historically, royal birth certificates are registered within days. Prince George's was public within 11 days. Charlotte's within 9. But Archie's? Sat in limbo for nearly a month. And when it finally appeared, the details were baffling. It listed Meghan's full name, Rachel Meghan Markle, as Princess of the United Kingdom. Wait, what? Meghan was never officially titled as a princess. She was the Duchess of Sussex. The use of princess seemed jarring, almost fabricated. Then it got stranger. Just weeks later, the birth certificate was amended. The new version removed Meghan's name entirely. It now simply read, Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex. No Rachel. No Meghan. No Markle. Why the change? The palace claimed it was a clerical correction. Meghan's PR team, however, blasted that claim, calling it offensive and ridiculous. So who's lying? Why the contradiction between two sides of the same royal operation? And why is it so difficult to get a straight answer about the most basic detail of a baby's birth? Let's go deeper. There were whispers, unconfirmed but persistent, that Meghan was never actually seen entering Portland Hospital that night. No footage, no paparazzi shots, no limo arrivals. Remember, this is central London. You can't sneeze without someone recording it. And yet, no images. Zero. Did she enter through a back door? Did she arrive in disguise? Or was she never there at all? Was someone else there? Someone else giving birth? And if so, to whose child? The timeline only gets messier from there. In the days after Archie's supposed birth, no one, not even close royal aides, saw the baby in person. Even some palace staff reportedly joked that the baby lives behind a velvet curtain. There were no public walks, no church appearances, no christening rehearsals, just silence. And when the christening did happen, 2 months later, it was entirely closed to the public. Photos were released after the event, carefully edited, black and white, shot from angles that made it impossible to discern much at all. And the most glaring detail? In nearly every shot, Archie's face was either obscured, turned away, or blurred by lighting. Not one unambiguous shot. Why? Even Princess Diana, known for battling the press, allowed clear baby photos. Even notoriously private royals like Zara and Mike Tyndall have proudly displayed their newborns. But not Meghan, not Harry, not Archie. Could it be that they were hiding something more than just a child? Could it be that they were hiding the truth about that child's origin? Let's return to the hospital mystery. If Meghan did not give birth at Portland Hospital, where did the birth happen? Was there a surrogate? Was there a secret arrangement in place to claim legal maternity? In the UK, surrogacy is legal, but commercial surrogacy is not. And parental rights must be transferred through a legal process after the birth. Could that process have been handled quietly behind the scenes? Is that what the delay in the birth certificate was really about? And if a surrogate did give birth, who was she? Where is she now? And why hasn't anyone, not one single person, stepped forward with photos, video, or verified first-hand accounts of Meghan's delivery? That's rare. Unheard of, even, for someone as globally famous as Meghan. Unless no such moment exists. Unless the narrative was never designed to hold up under scrutiny, only to look believable from a distance. And now, with Lady C dropping her bombshell, all of those strange puzzle pieces are coming back into focus. Because it wasn't just about the timeline. It was about the layers of misdirection. The pre-birth secrecy, the mid-birth contradictions, the post-birth vanishing act. Every moment carefully managed. Every announcement strategically delayed. Every document edited or amended. But why go through all that trouble? Why fake the timeline, manipulate the birth record, obscure the baby's image? What would they stand to gain? Or perhaps more importantly, what were they trying to avoid losing? One theory suggests Meghan needed to present herself as a mother to solidify her brand. That motherhood was essential for public sympathy. That a royal child was the golden ticket to global attention and financial leverage. Without Archie, what was left? A disgruntled duchess, an ex-actress, an outsider. But with Archie, she became more than a royal. She became a mother fighting the monarchy, a woman protecting her child from a cruel institution, a heroine. It changed the narrative. It created the narrative. But that's a powerful gamble, especially if the foundation isn't real. And now that foundation is starting to crack. The timeline doesn't match. The documents don't align. The footage doesn't convince. And the silence is growing louder. So here's the big question for you. What happens when that timeline collapses completely? When the discrepancies become undeniable? When public trust erodes entirely? Because as the pressure mounts and the narrative unravels, more people are coming forward. People who were there. People who saw things. People who were told to stay quiet. Including one woman who claims to have worked inside Frogmore Cottage during Archie's so-called infancy. And what she saw, or more accurately, didn't see, will leave you stunned. Because sometimes, it's not the presence of a baby that raises suspicion. It's the eerie absence of one. Have you ever noticed how, in almost every photo of Meghan and her children, something just feels off? Not dramatic, not outrageous, just subtly wrong. Like when you look at a picture and can't quite tell why it feels unnatural. The lighting seems fine. The poses are normal. But still, something itches in the back of your mind. Something your eyes pick up before your brain can explain. Now imagine that happening every single time a royal child is shown to the world. No smiles. No spontaneous moments. No real-time footage. Just a steady stream of heavily curated, oddly timed, strangely filtered images that never quite satisfy. That's the story of Meghan, Harry, and the children who may or may not exist. And it all starts with a blanket. Let's go back to May 8th, 2019, the world's first official glimpse of Archie Harrison, Mountbatten, Windsor. The setting? St. George's Hall in Windsor Castle. A regal location. Carefully chosen. Grand, but controlled. Limited access for media. Only 3 press photographers allowed in. No independent reporters. No questions permitted. Just a 90-second appearance. And the image that was captured? A smiling Harry. A glowing Meghan. And a baby, swaddled so tightly in a thick white blanket that you couldn't see anything but a hint of his face. No hands. No movement. Not even a visible blink. Now compare that to Kate and William's post-birth moments. All 3 of their children were photographed in their arms, unwrapped enough to show limbs, facial expressions, or at least some sign of life. But with Meghan? It looked more like a museum exhibit than a family photo. People noticed. At first, only the fringe voices spoke up, YouTube sleuths, amateur photo analysts, conspiracy theorists. They pointed out how Archie's head sat awkwardly on Meghan's arm, how the baby didn't move once, how Meghan seemed overly cautious in how she held him, cradling the blanket more than the child. But it didn't stop there. In the following months, Meghan and Harry released only a handful of photos. And every single one followed the same pattern. Archie's face was always hidden. In one image, he was nestled against Meghan's chest, facing away from the camera. In another, a sepia-toned Christmas photo, he was crawling toward the lens, but the blur effect made his features impossible to discern. Then came the infamous baby feet photo, Mother's Day 2019. Just Archie's tiny soles peeking out from a white blanket, held gently by Meghan's manicured hand. No body, no face, no location metadata. Just feet. And the caption? Paying tribute to all mothers. Cryptic, ambiguous, emotionally evocative, but suspiciously lacking in clarity. It became a pattern. Every image that followed carried that same unsettling trait. Either Archie's face was turned, blurred, covered, or missing entirely. Even his first birthday video, released through Save the Children UK, was a single, tightly cropped clip of Meghan reading a book to a restless toddler in what looked like poor lighting, poor audio, and, conveniently, no one else present. People immediately noticed the oddities. Archie's voice wasn't heard. His face seemed bloated, some even said off-model, as if the child was older than advertised. Questions swirled about the setting. Was it even in their Montecito home? Why did the video feel so thrown together, as if to satisfy an obligation? And here's where things get chilling. Metadata investigators, yes, they exist, began digging into the properties of the photo files Meghan and Harry had released. Several images showed signs of manipulation, altered timestamps, cropped GPS data, compression artifacts inconsistent with DSLR photography. Some even speculated that certain images were composites, where one photo had been layered onto another. Could they prove it? Not definitively, but the pattern was damning. No spontaneous images, no candid street shots, no zoom lens paparazzi snaps of a young Archie toddling across the lawn. And remember, this is Meghan and Harry, two of the most photographed people on the planet. And yet in 5 years, there hasn't been a single, independently verified image of Archie or Lilibet in the wild. No stroller walks, no playground outings, no family vacations. Even celebrity parents more private than them, Beyoncé, Angelina Jolie, Ryan Reynolds, have been caught with their kids by the occasional long-lens camera. But with Meghan, nothing. And here's where the contradictions begin to bleed through. Because in one breath, Meghan rails against media intrusion. She files lawsuits, demands privacy, and accuses the press of endangering her children. But in the next breath, she sells access to their image, on her terms. The Oprah interview? She brought up motherhood repeatedly. The Netflix series? Carefully curated home footage. Again, faces blurred, angles cropped. The Lilibet birthday photos? Professionally staged, selectively released, impossible to verify. It's the illusion of transparency. You think you've seen Archie. You think you've met Lilibet. But have you really? Or have you only seen what they want you to see? And the answer might be hidden in a single word. Control. Meghan and Harry are obsessed with controlling the narrative. Every appearance, every photo, every headline. And children, real or not, are the ultimate storytelling device. They soften public image. They generate press. They sell vulnerability. But they also demand proof. And that's where the house of cards starts to wobble. Because here's a question most people haven't asked. Why not show Archie? If you're so proud of your family, your children, your journey, why the secrecy? Why release heavily edited footage, bizarre blanket-covered photo ops, and artfully abstract images, but never a simple, smiling toddler photo at the beach? Is it for privacy? Then why mention your kids constantly in interviews? Why monetize their names via charitable trademarks? Why sue tabloids while still feeding Netflix a storyline about your family? You can't have it both ways. Unless you don't have the real material to begin with. Unless what you're hiding isn't your children's faces, but their very existence. And that's exactly what Lady C implied. That Archie isn't with Meghan. That he lives in the UK with his biological mother. That Meghan, at best, is legally connected, but biologically removed. Or at worst, not connected at all. Which might explain why the photos never feel right. Why the footage never satisfies. Why the birthday wishes from royals never include public images or real-time celebrations. Because maybe there's nothing to show. But here's the part that truly raises the stakes. Every photo released of Archie and Lilibet is not just a personal memento. It's a public statement, an assertion of parental legitimacy. A visual claim that these children exist, are loved, are present. But if those claims were ever proven false, if even one of those images was exposed as fraudulent, it would detonate the Sussex brand. Netflix deals would vanish. Spotify residuals would evaporate. Books would be pulped. Contracts shredded. Reputations shattered. That's why every photo must be perfect. That's why they're so tightly controlled. Because they're not memories. They're evidence. Proof of a life that may or may not be happening behind those Montecito gates. And that's why the blankets matter. That's why the blur matters. That's why the lighting and the angles and the softness of the focus all matter. Because the truth hides in the spaces where the audience isn't allowed to look. But now, thanks to Lady C's explosive statement, people are starting to look hard. They're revisiting old photos. They're comparing birth certificates. They're zooming in on pixels. And more disturbingly, they're finding patterns. Repeated outfits. Recycled poses. Identical rooms reused across different years. One user even noticed that Archie's supposed 2021 birthday photo was shot in the exact same outfit and location as a 2019 PR image, down to the thread patterns on the blanket. Coincidence? Or sloppy recycling? Either way, it's suspicious. But it doesn't end there. Because what if someone inside the Montecito household noticed it too? What if someone tasked with maintaining this image, cooking, cleaning, organizing, preparing, started to feel uneasy? What if they realized the nursery never needed restocking? That no toys were ever moved? That no childproofing was ever installed? And what if they started asking questions? What if they saw too much? Well, one such person has allegedly stepped forward. A staffer, a former housekeeper, someone who spent months inside Frogmore Cottage. And what she has to say about Archie's life behind those walls is more unsettling than any doctored photo could ever be. Because sometimes the absence of evidence is the evidence. What if the loudest truth comes not from what someone says, but from what they saw? Or more precisely, from what they didn't see? Because behind the locked gates of Frogmore Cottage, away from the media glare and carefully managed photo ops, one woman watched. She wasn't a journalist, or a royal expert, or a TikTok sleuth hunting for clues in photo metadata. She was a housekeeper, a quiet presence in the background. A woman tasked with dusting the surfaces, folding the linens, managing the flow of a home that was supposed to echo with the sounds of new life. But what she remembers is silence. No cries, no toys, no diapers, no baby. Her name hasn't been publicly released, for legal and security reasons, but in private interviews with two investigative researchers, this former Frogmore staffer painted a picture that diverges wildly from the idyllic family narrative Harry and Meghan pushed to the world. And it all began in the summer of 2019, just weeks after Archie was supposedly born. She was hired as part of the temporary domestic rotation at Frogmore Cottage. Meghan and Harry, according to internal communications, had requested minimal staff. Only a cook, a cleaner, and one occasional assistant. Odd for new parents, no? Most royals employ night nurses, multiple nannies, even full-time laundry and kitchen staff when babies arrive. But not the Sussexes. They insisted on privacy. The staffer's schedule varied, but she recalls three things with disturbing clarity. The nursery door was almost always locked. No one, not even the cook, ever saw baby formula or baby bottles. There was never the sound of crying. Not once. At first, she told herself not to question it. Maybe Archie was a quiet baby. Maybe Meghan was just really good at managing things herself. Maybe they didn't want staff interfering. But then came a particular night. One she'll never forget. It was around 2:30 a.m. A fire alarm went off, just a false alert caused by the kitchen steam sensor, but protocol demanded a full sweep of the property. The guard on duty called her to assist in the check. When they reached the nursery door, they found it bolted from the inside. She says the security guard knocked gently. No response. They knocked again. Still nothing. Then, without explanation, Meghan appeared in the hallway moments later, in silk pajamas, calm but firm, and told them the nursery had already been checked. No need to go in, she insisted. The staffer remembers the phrasing exactly. There's no one in there. And that line stuck with her. Because shouldn't a nursery always have someone in it? Especially with a newborn? Or at least something? She didn't say he's fine. Or he's asleep. She said, there's no one in there. Over the next few weeks, more things didn't add up. Meghan would sometimes make references to feeding schedules. But there were no signs of bottles in the kitchen. No baby monitor on the counters. No changing tables visible in the bathroom areas. Even the trash, carefully disposed of and handled by security, never contained diapers, or wipes, or anything remotely baby-related. And then there was the incident with the blanket. One morning, the staffer arrived early and noticed a thick white blanket, embroidered with an A, neatly folded on the sitting room couch. On top of it sat a rattle, still in its packaging, unused, unwrinkled, untouched. Later that day, that exact same blanket and rattle appeared in a newly released official Sussex family photo, billed as a candid moment of Archie playing on the floor. Except it wasn't candid. It was staged. It was composed using props never used by a real child. And the woman who folded that blanket knew it. Her suspicion grew. She began to notice Meghan entering and exiting the cottage at strange hours. occasionally alone. Sometimes with a woman in a hoodie who never removed her sunglasses. Once, she claims, she saw that woman carrying a child seat, but the cover was zipped shut, and the woman left just 15 minutes later, alone. She never returned. Then came the day that broke her trust completely. She had stepped into the hallway to retrieve clean linens and heard baby sounds. Finally, a sign of life. Gurgling. A coo. Soft squeals. She froze in place. Relief flooded her. Until she looked down the corridor and saw a small portable speaker tucked discreetly under a hallway sideboard, playing pre-recorded baby noises. A loop. She stepped closer. Listened again. The same pattern. The same giggle. Repeating every 30 seconds. It wasn't real. It was a recording. When she looked up, Meghan stood at the end of the hallway, silent, watching her. No words were exchanged, but the message was clear. Don't ask. Don't look. Don't speak. 2 days later, she was reassigned. Told her presence was no longer required. That the couple were moving into a different phase of privacy. No explanation. No thanks. No goodbye. She packed her bags. She told herself to forget. But when Lady C's bombshell broke years later, Archie lives in the UK with his real mom. Everything came rushing back. The silences. The locked doors. The rattle that was only ever used in photos. The fake baby monitor sounds. The pre-recorded coos. The tight blanket that always looked too stiff, too staged. She hadn't seen a baby. She had seen a performance. And now, she couldn't stay silent. She reached out, privately, to an investigator who had been digging into the Sussex narrative since 2020. He verified her identity, cross-checked her employment records, cross-referenced her descriptions with layouts of Frogmore Cottage. Everything matched. Her story was consistent. Her timeline aligned with the public record. But she refused to go public. Why? Because she feared retaliation. From Meghan's legal team. From Harry's security network. From the media, who might brand her a disgruntled liar or a racist former staffer. So she remains in the shadows. But her testimony adds yet another crack in the already crumbling story of Meghan's motherhood. Because if a woman who lived in the same house as Meghan for weeks never saw a single sign of a baby, what does that tell you? Could Archie have been living somewhere else? Was he born via a surrogate who retained custody? Was there a private arrangement between families? And if so, why all the secrecy? Why not just be honest about using a surrogate? Others have done it. Elton John, Kim Kardashian, even other royals have explored non-traditional family arrangements. So what makes Meghan's situation different? The answer may lie in the narrative she needed to control. Because Meghan's entire public redemption arc, the Oprah interview, the Netflix series, the Archetypes podcast, relies on one central theme: protecting her children. From racism, from the media, from the institution. But how do you protect children who aren't in your care? Or who might not legally be yours? Or who might not exist at all? That's the terrifying question we're left with. And it only gets murkier from here. Because this staffer wasn't the only person noticing something strange. Journalists, royal watchers, anonymous sources. They were all whispering the same thing. But none dared say it out loud. Until now. Because as Meghan's brand starts to falter, and the lies grow too heavy to carry, the truth is clawing its way out. And the next place we're going? It's the courtroom. The legal gags. The NDAs. The silenced nannies. The missing medical records. Because Meghan didn't just keep her staff quiet. She kept them legally bound. And the deeper we look into those documents, the more disturbing it becomes. Because if you have to force everyone around you to never speak about your baby, what exactly are you trying to hide? Silence isn't always a sign of peace. Sometimes, it's the price of a signature. And when it comes to Meghan Markle and the mystery surrounding her children, that silence has been bought, carefully, aggressively, and at a very steep price. Because long before Lady C's explosive statement ever made it to YouTube, Meghan had already built a legal fortress around her personal life. A fortress made not of bricks or security guards, but of NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, gag orders, confidentiality clauses buried in contracts so tight, even the most seasoned staffers wouldn't dare whisper a word. And here's the part that raises eyebrows. It didn't start after Archie's supposed birth. It started months before. In early 2019, while Meghan was still publicly pregnant, several staffers at Kensington and Buckingham Palace were asked to sign new confidentiality agreements. These weren't the standard ones that come with royal employment. These were updated, stricter, and specifically included clauses that forbade commentary, speculation, or disclosure of details surrounding private medical matters, children, or childbearing. That last word, childbearing, sent a chill down the spine of one royal aide who later leaked the language to a journalist. Why would that term need to be included? What was being protected? And who were they really protecting? Because let's be blunt, every member of the royal family has privacy protocols. But no one, not even Diana during her most vulnerable years, ever had language like that inserted into staff documents regarding childbirth. It was unprecedented, and it didn't stop there. Once Meghan and Harry moved to Frogmore Cottage, the NDA requests grew more aggressive. According to insiders, even temporary contractors, florists, caterers, part-time security, were handed documents demanding their silence not just during employment, but indefinitely. No conversations, no memoirs, no interviews, no leaks. Or else, one contractor, who asked to remain anonymous, recalled being approached by an outside legal team, not the standard royal HR department, to sign a third-party NDA before even entering the premises. The clause that stood out? Subject shall not disclose the presence, absence, or details pertaining to minor persons within the residence or their custodial arrangements. Sounds like a fancy way of saying, don't talk about a baby that may or may not be here. And if that weren't enough, Meghan reportedly insisted that all maternity-related services, from doulas to delivery staff to pediatric consultants, go through private vendors outside the traditional NHS or royal-affiliated hospitals. This meant fewer paper trails, fewer standard records, and most importantly, less accountability. Even the choice of Portland Hospital raised eyebrows, not because it's suspicious in itself, but because it allowed Meghan and Harry to sidestep traditional royal birth protocol. There was no royal team of OB/GYNs, no palace medical officers, no media presence, only private doctors, bound by private contracts, sealed behind private agreements. And remember, no one from the hospital ever confirmed the birth. No press release, no statement, not even a congratulatory tweet. It was almost as if they weren't allowed to. Which brings us to the legal machine behind Meghan's empire. Her lawyer of choice? Schillings, a high-powered UK firm known for handling the most delicate, high-risk reputation management cases. Their clients include tech billionaires, international royalty, and some of the most controversial public figures on the planet. They don't just defend against libel. They prevent stories from ever being published. Their specialty? Pre-publication threats, quiet warnings. And if that doesn't work, lawsuits. And Meghan has used them to devastating effect. She sued the Mail on Sunday. She's threatened Australian tabloids. She's sent legal notices to social media influencers and bloggers. And while many of these cases have been about privacy, letters, and phone records, a few have been about something far more guarded. Photos. Specifically, photos of her children. Or, more precisely, the right to control their image. Remember the case against the paparazzi agency that used a drone to capture images of Archie playing in a private backyard? Meghan claimed the image was an invasion of privacy. Fair enough. But according to court documents, the Sussex legal team never produced proof that Archie was in the photo. They simply insisted the possibility was enough to trigger legal action. And here's the chilling part. The photo in question never clearly showed a child's face. It could have been any toddler. But that didn't matter. Because it wasn't about what was seen. It was about what Meghan wanted not to be seen. Which raises a provocative question. What if the most dangerous thing for Meghan isn't a photo being published, but a photo being analyzed? Imagine if a clear image of Archie, unfiltered, unedited, were placed side by side with earlier photos. Would the public start to notice inconsistencies? Eye shape, hairline, bone structure. Would questions about age, development, even ethnicity begin to surface? Questions that, once asked, can't be unasked. And that may explain why Meghan's team has gone to such lengths to preemptively suppress even the potential of unapproved images. Now let's talk about the nanny scandal. Or rather, the lack of one. Because in royal circles, nannies are as standard as tiaras. They're employed for every royal child. They're seen, photographed, acknowledged. But Archie's nanny? She's a ghost. In 2019, Meghan and Harry reportedly hired a night nurse who was let go after just a few days. No explanation was ever given. The next nanny lasted longer, but was rarely seen. In fact, many royal reporters noted that no professional nanny ever appeared in public with Archie. Not during trips, not during events, not even during official photos. And once Harry and Meghan moved to California, the nanny disappeared altogether. Again, no Instagram posts, no paparazzi shots, no staff car outside, nothing. Even when asked point-blank in interviews, Meghan deflects. She praises motherhood. She speaks vaguely about help, but never confirms who, if anyone, was assisting with the children, which leads us to a disturbing pattern. No visible nannies, no seen pediatricians, no confirmed hospital staff, no clear images of the children in real time. An illegal army deployed to enforce that vacuum. Because here's the brutal truth. If Meghan doesn't have biological or legal custody of Archie and Lilibet, any slip-up could unravel everything. A rogue staffer, a revealing photo, an accidental statement in an interview. Any one of those could bring the entire narrative crashing down. So NDAs become more than contracts. They become insurance policies. Lawsuits become less about reputation and more about control. Control of what can be said. Control of what can be seen. Control of what exists. But not everyone can be silenced. Some speak in whispers. Some leak documents. Some issue carefully worded statements. And others, like Lady Colin Campbell, just rip the Band-Aid off entirely. And when Lady C went public with her claim that Archie lives in the UK with his mom, Meghan's legal team reportedly panicked. Behind the scenes, they began contacting platforms to take down clips. Bloggers were warned. Social accounts discussing the topic suddenly vanished. And yet, Lady C's video stayed up. Why? Because Lady C never directly accused Meghan of fraud. She didn't show photos. She didn't reveal documents. She stated an opinion, backed by what she claimed were known truths in certain circles. And that's harder to sue, because opinions, even shocking ones, have legal protection, which means Meghan couldn't stop the wildfire. All she could do was try to contain it. But the more she tightens the grip, the more people start to ask, why so much secrecy if there's nothing to hide? Why seal medical records? Why silence housekeepers? Why lock rooms? Why stage photos? Why sue photographers over unidentifiable toddlers? Why edit birth certificates? Why disappear the nanny? Why, above all, build an empire of silence? Unless that silence is hiding something devastating. Something that, if exposed, would unravel every book deal, every documentary, every moral high ground she's claimed. And here's the final twist for this chapter. A whistleblower within one of Meghan's former PR firms has allegedly come forward to a UK investigative reporter. They've provided internal emails that hint at photo staging, timeline manipulation, and coordinated legal strategies designed to prevent public scrutiny over the children's identities. These emails have not yet been published, but they exist, and if they surface, they may finally explain why Meghan's legal strategy was never about protecting her children. It was about protecting the illusion of having them, and that illusion is fraying rapidly, because when documents are doctored, silence is enforced, and staff are gagged, the truth doesn't disappear. It waits, and now it's rising, because someone filed a Freedom of Information request for Archie's birth record, and what they received back was not what they expected. A birth certificate is supposed to be the simplest document in the world. A name, a date, a time, a place, a mother, a father. That's it. It's the first official record of a human being's existence. The unshakable proof that someone was born, here, on this date, to these parents. So why is Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor's birth certificate one of the most suspicious, heavily edited, and legally debated documents in royal history? What are they hiding? And more importantly, why would they need to hide anything? Let's unpack the mess, because this is where the inconsistencies aren't just curious anymore. They're damning. We begin on May 17, 2019, 11 days after Archie's supposed birth. That's when the official birth certificate was finally registered with the Westminster Register Office. The delay was already unusual. Royal births are typically recorded within 5 to 7 days. Even the notoriously private Queen Elizabeth filed timely records for all her children. But Meghan and Harry took their time. And when the certificate finally emerged, everything about it screamed weird. The birth location was confirmed as the Portland Hospital for Women and Children, a plush, private facility in central London known for its luxury services and discretion. Not unusual for wealthy parents. But jarring, considering that weeks earlier, the Sussexes were loudly signaling their intention for a private, home birth at Frogmore Cottage. Why lie about the birth plan? Or more accurately, why pretend there was ever a plan for a home birth if you knew it wouldn't happen? But that was just the beginning. The real red flag came in the section listing the mother's name. It didn't say Meghan Markle. It said Rachel Meghan Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex. A mouthful, sure. But why list her full legal name? Previous royal birth certificates didn't do that. Kate Middleton was simply listed as Catherine Elizabeth Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Cambridge, not Catherine Elizabeth Middleton. There was consistency in form. So what was this? An overcorrection? A power move? Or a clumsy attempt to formalize a document that lacked the usual oversight? Critics raised eyebrows. But the story didn't explode. Until January 2020, when the certificate was quietly amended. Without public announcement. Without comment. When the press got wind of it, the change was clear. Meghan's name had been removed from the certificate entirely. The new version listed the mother only as Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex. No Rachel. No Meghan. No Markle. Gone. Erased. Now pause and think about that. This is the legal document that designates who gave birth to Archie. And the biological mother's name, by law, is supposed to be on it. So why remove it? What possible reason could there be for stripping a mother's name off her own child's birth certificate? The palace tried to spin it. They claimed it was a clerical error, that Meghan and Harry had requested the change to align with formal royal styling. But Meghan's spokesperson immediately fired back, calling the suggestion offensive and accusing the institution of dictating the change without her consent. A public contradiction. The Sussex camp said they didn't approve the removal. The palace said they did. So who's lying? And more importantly, why was it so important to remove Meghan's name? Because if Meghan didn't give birth to Archie, if a surrogate did, then legally, the birth mother's name would need to be concealed or replaced via legal mechanisms. In the UK, surrogacy laws are complicated. A surrogate mother is considered the legal mother of the child at birth, even if she has no genetic connection to the baby. The intended parents, in this case, Meghan and Harry, must apply to the courts for a parental order, which then transfers legal parenthood. This process must be completed within 6 months of the child's birth. And it requires court documentation, legal filings, and the presence of both parents in the UK. Here's where it gets messy. No such court filings have ever surfaced. No documentation of a parental order. No known court appearances by Meghan and Harry in relation to surrogacy. But that doesn't mean it didn't happen. It just means it may have happened in secret, behind closed doors, or not at all, if Meghan did use a surrogate and failed to complete the proper legal channels. Then the original birth certificate would have contained the name of another woman, a name they had to erase, a name that couldn't appear on royal documents. And perhaps that's why the certificate was first delayed, then amended, and ultimately left with no maternal name at all. Because if they couldn't list Meghan, and couldn't legally list the surrogate, the only option? Scrub it all together. But the inconsistencies keep piling up. For example, the occupation listed for Harry and Meghan on Archie's birth certificate? Prince of the United Kingdom and Princess of the United Kingdom. Wait, what? Meghan was never granted the title of princess. She was the Duchess of Sussex. Her official style, even per the monarchy's own website, was never Princess Meghan. So why was that title used? Was it another clerical error? Or was it deliberate? Was it an attempt to create a veneer of legitimacy, making the document look more royal than it actually was? Or was it simply a smokescreen, burying real inconsistencies under formal-sounding fluff? Now, contrast this with other royal birth records. Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis all have transparent, straightforward certificates. No amendments, no redactions, no mysterious edits. So why is Archie's certificate the only one shrouded in confusion? And it's not just the document itself. It's what's missing from the public record. To this day, no midwife, nurse, or delivery doctor has ever come forward to confirm attending Meghan's birth. Not a single hospital staffer has been publicly named. There are no official photos of Meghan entering or leaving the Portland hospital. No paparazzi shots. No press statement from the facility. Not even a customary, thanks to the amazing staff.